What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Height episode. Today we're going to be finishing off trade deadline, talking about all these trades, everything like that. So if you do enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below on who won the trade deadline and who lost the trade deadline. So without further ado, let's get right on into this. So we're just going to go through every deal that did happen and just talk about them. So we're going to start with one of the last deals of the day was the Pistons receiving KJ Martin and a 2027 and a 2023 second round pick. And the Sixers received cash consideration. This is just freeing up space for the Sixers for the buyout market. There is what that seems. So not really a big trade to talk about. We're just going to move on. The 76ers were active, though. Right after that, they then traded away Reggie Jackson and a 2026 first-round pick for Jared Butler, 2 second-round picks, and then 2 more second-round picks in 2030. So if you're the Wizards, why you did this was you get the first-round pick. That's all you care about. You're trying to just acquire as much talent, young talent as possible and draft capital, right? Of course, you're absorbing that contract in Reggie Jackson, which you can take on, and then you then get that 2026 first-round pick. The Celtics trade Jaden Springer to the Rockets for a 2031 second-round pick. They gave up 2 second-round picks as well. We've talked about this many times on this podcast. The idea that Jaden Springer, he was going to be traded in some shape or form in order for the Celtics to be on the buyout market. Players like we expect, like Ben Simmons, to be on the market, somebody like that, maybe Reggie Jackson, and then, that's just where the Celtics are going, is that buyout market. We talked a little bit about this trade yesterday. Kings acquiring Jonas Valanciunas from the Wizards in exchange for Sidi Sissoko and 2 future second-round picks. I'm not going to touch on this too much just because I did touch on this in the last episode. But basically, the Kings, they needed defense and they added a offensive caliber player, which is a little confusing. But if you want more details on that, jump into yesterday's episode. Now, let's talk a little bit about, because I didn't touch on this too much, but the Dallas Mavericks getting Caleb Martin in exchange for Quentin Grimes and a 2025 second-round pick, that going to the 76ers. Just like I talked about, the Sixers made a bunch of small moves. This one I really like for the 76ers. I think Quentin Grimes is a younger player. I think he's better than Caleb Martin. I think Caleb, he has realistically showcased a playoff series where he was phenomenal. And that's when he shot the lights out against the Celtics. Quentin Grimes, though, he is up and coming. So it's a risky play, but of course I like it. I think Philly needed to make a move. I was expecting a little bit of a bigger move out of them, acquiring something a little bigger than Quentin Grimes being the top talent that you go and receive. But hey, they're banking on Embiid getting healthy and banking on Paul George and Maxey fitting in with Embiid. Of course, we talked about the De'Aaron Fox trade. I'm not going to touch too much on that. We talked about the Lakers landing Luka. Now, here we have the PJ Tucker. He was traded again and again and again. He made his way all the way to Toronto, where he was traded from the Clippers over to the Utah, from Utah over to Miami, from Miami all the way to Toronto in 5 days. He was moved team. I'm assuming he'll probably get waived by the Raptors and then get sent. He's probably going to sign a small deal with some sort of contending team. Look out for somebody like the Warriors looking to add some depth, maybe even the Sixers again looking to add some depth there. Yeah, so basically that is like the big bulk of the trade deadline. Now, let's talk about some winners and losers of the trade deadline. A big winner, I think, is the Lakers, of course. Lakers go out and they get Luka. They go get a center, Mark Williams, which I didn't touch on that one, but Mark Williams goes to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Dalton Knecht and that 2031 second-round pick. I think the winner of this trade is genuinely the Hornets, but I also think the Lakers, they had to make this deal. It made a lot of sense for them to go out and get Mark Williams, a center who does have like a 9'9" wingspan. It's bigger than Victor Wembanyama's wingspan. So I like the ability there. He was averaging 19 points a game over in Charlotte. He is somebody that I think will play very well for the Lakers immediately. So although they are planning for the future, Mark Williams does fit the timeline of Luka. I think that he's going to have immediate success there with Luka and LeBron. Another big winner in that trade, I do think the winner of that trade is the Hornets. You now have a core of like LaMelo, Dalton Connect, Brandon Miller. Of course, you lost out on Mark Williams, but you did get that 2031 unprotected first-round pick. That's 6 years from now. LeBron's probably not going to be on the roster. Of course, who knows if Luka will be on the roster at this point, and if he is, then it's probably not going to be as valuable as when he wasn't traded there. But Charlotte, I like that. You go get a young guy who's been playing decent, not great, but I think that he's just a rookie. He needs time to develop, and he could be a three-point sniper in the league. If you're Charlotte, I think that this is a deal that I would have done 9 times out of 10. Yeah, you gave up your future center, but I think that you can go kind of find another center on the market or in the draft, right? So especially since there's teams like Portland sitting there on 3 different centers and not one of them got dealt. That was a little disappointing. They are actually my first loser of the video in the trade deadline. It is the Portland Trailblazers. You did not trade Anthony Simons. You did not trade Jeremy Grant. You did not trade Robert Williams or DeAndre Ayton. No suitors for those guys. So with those reasons, I think that, yeah. Now, of course, they've been on a little bit of a winning streak, 5 games in a row. They've been playing actually decently well. But I think a lot of that has to do with I think when teams play them, they kind of let up on the gas pedal. And so it's okay to like rest some of your starters against the Trailblazers and not go as hard against the Trailblazers because the Trailblazers are bad, as they should be bad. They have their own first-round pick this year. You're going to want to be bad in the long run. You don't want to get stuck in the middle of the pack like somebody like we talk about that right now. The Sixers are kind of in that mix. The Hawks are in that mix where they're kind of stuck in the middle. Chicago is in that mix of stuck in the middle of in between good and bad. Not good enough to win a championship, not bad enough to get a top like 5 pick, for example. Now, the Bulls are looking pretty rough, and they just traded Levine, and of course, they traded DeRozan in the offseason. They did not find a suitor for Vucevic. So they're one of my in-betweeners. I think they're more leaning losers than they are winners. I expected they re-signed or extended Lonzo Ball to a 2-year, $20 million deal. I think that's a fantastic deal for somebody of his caliber. So I think there's a win there, but I think not finding a deal for Vucevic is crucial. I think that's where they kind of go into the loser market. I think you should have gone on a fire sale. You should have gotten rid of Vucevic. Of course, you got rid of Levine and DeRozan. You got rid of Alex Caruso, right? And then, but what about Kobe White? What about Vooch? Well, like those guys that could have been on the trade market, especially with all these disgruntled stars sitting there. Kevin Durant was sitting on that market, waiting, like the Suns wanted to trade him. He didn't necessarily want to be moved per se, but the Suns were open to hearing trades for Kevin Durant. Which brings me to the Phoenix Suns being another loser of the trade deadline. I think that they couldn't find a deal to get rid of Bradley Beal, of course. They were looking at trades for Kevin Durant, and now you made Kevin Durant probably a disgruntled star because he was kind of like, what the hell, why are you looking to trade me? I didn't want to go to the Warriors. I wanted to continue here. I wanted Jimmy Butler here, kind of thing. So you might have screwed yourself and shot yourself in the foot in that scenario as the Phoenix Suns organization. It's just something that happens, right? Of course, it's tough to make trades. Not too many trades happen like the Luka Mavs trade where no one knew about this trade, right? It's pretty uncommon that does happen. But, if I was Phoenix, I would be open to the idea of exploring a different option, whether it was Bradley Beal, whether it was Kevin Durant, moving off of one of those guys, right? It's pretty interesting there that they created a possibility of a disgruntled star there. Now, another loser of the trade deadline. One, Minnesota. I think Minnesota needed to make a little bit of a move there, try and get off of Julius Randle. It clearly is not working over there. The fit's not great, that whole 9 yards. So, yeah, if I'm Minnesota, I would have wanted to make the deal. Reportedly, they tried some last-second effort to try and go get Kevin Durant to the Timberwolves, which would have been really interesting to see Anthony Edwards and KD play together. I'm assuming to make the money match, it would have been guys like Julius Randle. They probably would have needed to include Rob Dillingham in that deal as an enticing piece for the Suns to pick up, which if I'm an NBA team right now and I kind of need a point guard, I'm going and trying to get Rob Dillingham. I think he's legit. I think he could be a stud in this league. He's got flashes of like an Allen Iverson, Kyrie Irving-esque, where I think he could be a phenomenal point guard in this league. So I would take a risk on him. I probably would have gone after him. And maybe Minnesota didn't want to give him up. Maybe that was the deal. We don't know all the details yet, but yes, I do think that Minnesota is a loser in the trade deadline because they didn't make any significant moves to improve the roster. I think the Nuggets are another disappointment in the trade deadline. They are a team that I think that they're good, but I don't know if they are going to be able to compete against all this other stardom talent, right? Against the amount of talent that the Thunder have, against the amount of talent that, the Lakers now possess, even the Mavericks, for example, possess, right? The Mavericks kind of match up pretty darn well against the Nuggets. So I was kind of expecting them to make a little bit of a tweak. Maybe you get rid of, Aaron Gordon's coming off the bench right now because Russell Westbrook's been playing so well. So it seems as if you could have explored options of either him or Michael Porter Jr., gone and upgraded your wing, maybe talk to Atlanta about DeAndre Hunter. That brings me to my next team that is a winner in the trade deadline, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. I liked the move of acquiring DeAndre Hunter. You gave up Caris LeVert, which is a bit of a bummer, but your dynamic players, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, carry the offensive workload. You needed help a little bit on the defensive end, defending a wing defender. You needed a wing defender. You had Jared Allen and Evan Mobley locking down the paint, but you needed a wing defender. So going and getting DeAndre Hunter, and he's actually playing basketball quite well right now, shooting the ball decently well. So I like that acquisition from them. As far as the Hawks go, I'm kind of confused as to what the Hawks are trying to do. You traded Bogdanovich. You ended up getting Caris LeVert. Like, are you trying to be good or are you trying to be bad? I'm so confused. You didn't find a suitor for Clint Capella. I don't really know what is going on with the Hawks organization right now at the moment. They are a team that is a middle of the pack Eastern Conference team, right? So they're somebody that probably should have been making a move. I think that the Atlanta Hawks could have made more plethora of moves and everything like that. Right now, the Hawks are sitting in a 9th seed, so they're not even guaranteed a playoff spot. Now, of course, I expect like Miami to drop. Now they don't have Jimmy Butler. Detroit will probably improve. Orlando will probably improve. Chicago's going to drop. So you probably are locking a play-in area spot, but that doesn't guarantee you could have, if Trae Young has a bad game, they're screwed in the play-in. And then they have to win 2 games to then get to the playoffs, to then face a Cleveland, Boston, New York, etc. It's not going to happen. It doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, I understand the idea that the Hawks don't own their own first-round pick. So, yeah, but why not go all in at that point? Why not trade Clint Capella to then go get somebody that can help you win games now, better than Clint Capella, when you had disgruntled stars Kevin Durant sitting on the market? Like, clearly Phoenix wanted to trade Kevin Durant. You could have put a package of, Clint Capella and Bogdanovich, etc. around. Now, they didn't have the draft capital, which could have been why they didn't go after somebody like that. But I think Michael Porter Jr. even could have been an upgrade for them. Like, there were moves there for Atlanta to make so that they could be competitive. I understand going all in when you thought the pairing of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray was going to work, but it didn't work. And I think that they it's kind of, but Phoenix is what I'm getting at. Phoenix, they went all in on D-Book, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. And they found a way to still retool and make other moves in that same, without having draft capital, really. I mean, they literally swapped first-round picks to go acquire more first-round picks. But Atlanta's not looking to do that. And clearly, I mean, they can't do it till the offseason now, but at what point does Trae Young get too disgruntled? Maybe he's just comfortable with mediocrity. Maybe that's what it is. No disrespect to Trae Young. It's more the Atlanta Hawks situation of not putting enough around him. And yeah, maybe Trae Young's not the answer. I think Trae Young is a fantastic basketball player. Is he a championship contending player? We don't know yet. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen him in a winning organization where they are contending for a championship. Ever since that one run, they haven't done anything. Where they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's it. That's not success. You had one good run. Cinderella run. Other teams that could have been included in the win column. I want to put the Bucks in there. The Bucks won. I do believe that they couldn't make too many deals, right? They couldn't. They're right around that second apron, so they couldn't make too much happen. But what they did is they got rid of an injury-prone player that hasn't been playing a whole lot for you and hasn't been performing to the level that he once did in Chris Middleton. And you went and you got Kyle Kuzma, who's at least on the court and not injury-prone. Yeah, I think they're a winner of the trade deadline. The Miami Heat, I would consider them a loser of the trade deadline. You got rid of Jimmy Butler, of course, that's wiping your hands clean of that and all that. But your return for him was terrible, right? It wasn't terrible per se. You got Andrew Wiggins back, which kind of fits the timeline of Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. But I still don't think that... I think they could have been a possible suitor for Kevin Durant and should have talked to Phoenix and said, hey... Or even going and getting a Bradley Beal. They have the perfect position where they're set up to where they could go get a superstar. And they're a superstar away from being a contending team. Because Jimmy Butler, a superstar, brought them to not one, but 2 NBA Finals. Let's take a look at other winners and losers of the trade deadline. Brooklyn didn't find a suitor for Cam Johnson. Loser. Nicholas Claxton, not traded. I stand by that statement. I think Brooklyn, loser of the trade deadline, because plenty of teams were looking for wings. The Cavs were looking for a wing. The Hawks were looking for a wing. The Kings needed a wing. You settled on nothing. You wanted too much. You overvalued. Because you got 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, you overvalued how much Cam Johnson was going to be worth. And maybe it was as simple as teams weren't willing to give it up, but still, you overvalued Cam Johnson. You could have gotten a young piece and a pick, but instead you wanted those 2 first-round picks for him, and it just wasn't going to happen. People weren't willing to pay that, especially when Luka just went for 1 first-round pick. There's no way that Cam Johnson was getting you more. Yes, Anthony Davis was included in that deal, but Cam Johnson isn't close to the player that Luka is. No disrespect to Cam, it's more of a compliment to Luka. Other winners of the deadline. I liked how Memphis got off of Marcus Smart's contract. He wasn't playing well. I think Marcus Smart is a winner of the trade deadline too. He needed a fresh start somewhere else. He goes to the Wizards, whether he gets bought out or not, we'll see. Even if he doesn't, he will help out these young guys as he has in the past. He has been a part of rookie Tatum, rookie Brown, right? We've seen him help develop those guys. Yes, he was super young at the time too, but I think that he could help out a Jordan Poole, a Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, and help showcase those guys how to win games. If he gets bought out, perfect. Bring him back to the Celtics. No, but seriously, if he does get bought out, I think that he could be a great suitor for a championship contending team. Lakers, for example, who kind of need defense right now. Ben Simmons should be bought out on the market, should go to a team like the Lakers, like the Hawks, like the Warriors, like the Celtics. Interesting acquisitions in the buyout market can bring up the value of these championship contending teams, because clearly the Thunder and the Celtics are proving you can add more on top of the already stacked roster. The Thunder added Daniel Tice to just have another center sitting there in case Chet gets injured again. Right? The Celtics freed up Jaden Springer, a guy who's sitting at the back of the bench, so that they could go get a buyout player. And they already have a great starting five. Why not add to the bench and add that depth? The Rockets are kind of losers in the trade deadline in my eyes, because they lost out on De'Aaron Fox, right? They couldn't make that deal happen. They couldn't make the Kevin Durant deal happen. Jimmy Butler didn't happen. No talent. Now, of course, they are the 3 seed in the West, so maybe they were looking at staying put. But I think that Jalen Green was very expendable, and tying him with Fred VanVleet's contract could have brought you a phenomenal player there that could have elevated this team that much more. Imagine Amen Thompson's defense with KD's offense. And it still could possibly happen, but realistically, no. I will say another winner of the trade deadline, it's got to be the Spurs. The Spurs fleeced the Kings. They fleeced Chicago. Didn't give up those Hawks picks, which is crazy. They got De'Aaron Fox. Like, it is such a win there. And he already is putting his foot on the court and like already playing well with Victor Wembanyama. They look like a great pairing together. Golden State, I'm going to put them in the winner column. I may have touched on the fact that the deal shouldn't have been done, but I want to give them some praise. They extended Butler to a 2-year, $111 million deal, which is ideal because it fits the Curry timeline. You don't have to keep him for 4 years like he was looking for. But yeah, you gave up Andrew Wiggins, which Butler is better than Wiggins. You gave up Dennis Schroeder, which he just got there anyways, wasn't fitting the system. You gave up Kyle Anderson, which in my eyes didn't fit the system either because he was so slow. And you gave up a protected pick. I think that's a phenomenal haul to get Jimmy Butler to this roster. I would have done that 9 times out of 10. So now you have Curry, you have Buddy Hield, you have Podziemski, you got Jonathan Kuminga, you have Jimmy Butler, you have Draymond Green, Kevon Looney. Like, there's a squad there. Trace Jackson Davis is there. Gary Payton, you didn't give up. The fact that they didn't give up one of the young guys, Moses Moody is still on this roster. Like, they didn't give up the young guys, which is phenomenal. That means in this offseason, they're either going to take a swing or the opposite, sit back, let their young guys develop. They are so tied to Podziemski. They love him over there, clearly, because they've had multiple deals on the table from other teams looking at, hey, we just want Pods. Just give us Pods, we're good. And they said, no, we'd rather keep Pods. No, we don't want Lauri Markkanen, we'd rather have Podziemski. Clearly, they see something that right now I don't see, because I'd rather have Lauri Markkanen. But last but not least, I have 2 more, actually. A loser of the trade deadline is the New Orleans Pelicans. I think that they should have moved off of Zion. I think they should have cut ties there, just started fresh. They decided not to. They went with trading Brandon Ingram instead. I don't love the trade they got back for Brandon Ingram. Now Toronto, who's my last winner of the trade deadline, has a roster of Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl. That's a solid starting 5. Relatively young that can grow together. Right? You got this fast point guard with RJ Barrett, who was a top 3 pick, Brandon Ingram, who was a top pick, Scotty Barnes, who was a top 5 pick. There's something cooking over there in Toronto. As a team that initially came into the trade deadline and said, we'll be a facilitator trade. We'll take in a contract. We'll absorb a contract. They left with one of the a player who fits their timeline and is able to win now. It almost felt like going into the trade deadline, they were going to be a team that was tanking. Now they're flipping the script, right? They're a team that is currently sitting at 13. But with all that talent, you're only 4 games behind Philly. I know that sounds like a lot, but there's still a lot of basketball left to play. They might be able to sneak in. They're only 6 games back from Chicago, who's going to tank. They just lost Zach LaVine. So, and they got their own first-round pick back. So the Bulls are going to tank. They're going to drop. That means either Philly, Brooklyn, or Toronto is going to take that spot. Like I said before, too, I think Miami will drop because they lost Jimmy Butler. And they got Wiggins back, which is cool. Do I think they're going to fall out of the playoffs? No. I think that they're going to be a play-in team. And then the health of Orlando is always concerning. Franz and Paolo not been playing a whole lot. So, all right, guys. Well, without further ado, there have been a ton of winners and a ton of losers in this trade deadline. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. So without further ado, it has been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.